Uncivilized Vitality, I'm going to talk to you today about some recommendations I have for your knife. Your knife's going to be your main tool after your clothing, your blankets, and ways to control your body temperature. The knife is the main tool. It could be just a sharp stone flake, but we've moved past that. And I have a few recommendations about knives. I'm not a knife expert by any means, although I really enjoy them, have most of my life. So I'll make some recommendations. We'll show you some examples. But let's start with just talking about why a knife is the cutting and digging primary tool. Let's talk about some basic parts so we're all on board. So you basically got the handle and the blade. All right, the blade has a few parts. So you can call this the tip, right, or the point. The back of the knife that's not sharp is referred to as the spine. The flat side of each blade is the face. And then you have the edge. That's the sharp part. But sometimes you'll see these little rough areas on the back of the spine closest to the handle. This is called jimping. Right? Jimping, or sometimes you'll see a thumb ramp there. I'm not a fan of thumb ramps, but jimping is nice to have for some of the control aspects of the blade, and we'll show you about that. Then you're going to have this area here that has a lot of different names, ricasso and different things. I'm just going to call it your finger guard or your finger choil, the ricasso. Let's just say finger guard. And it doesn't actually have to be like a crossbar guard, like on a, right, like a sword, and it's got this. Remember I used to draw swords as a little kid and it had the cross guard on there? It doesn't necessarily have to be like that. But sometimes it's just where the cutting edge of the blade dips a little lower than the handle, so that when my fingers are in there, it provides a little finger guard or protection from my hand sliding up onto the blade. The blade runs through, and then it's got two pieces of wood, micarta, G10, bone. You can make the handles out of a lot of things. Sometimes the handle goes all the way around, like it's rubber or plastic. Usually it's just two pieces that are scaled. They're called scales, and they're bolted right to the handle or the handle portion of the knife with retaining pins. And then you have the part of the, let's call it handle. These two things are the scales. These are the pins. And then you have the exposed pommel or butt end or end cap. And then sometimes there's a lanyard hole so you can put a little retention string. So these are the basic parts of the knife. You can find more knife videos on YouTube. Maybe we'll put some recommendations if Logan can find some. The edge of the knife interacting with the face is called the grind. So you can check out those grinds in particular on other videos and learn a little bit about it. Now here's the knife from a superior view, so you're looking down on it. This is the spine of the knife, and you can see where the two scales are bolted to the handle. And then here's the jimping again, right? So you can kind of see where you are in addition to my from my picture. Now the part of the metal of the knife that is not the blade that's running into the handle and the scales are bolted to, this part right here, from here all the way down to the end, is referred to as the tang. Okay? Sometimes the tang will stop here and just be bolted to the handle, or it'll have a real thin tang called a broom, a stick tang, a rat tail tang, partial tang, three-quarter tang. You want what's called a full tang. Full tang meaning it's just one piece of metal that has the handles or scales bolted to that piece of metal. That is your absolute strongest piece of type of knife construction. So let's sit down here and look at some examples, and I can show you a few of those and why we recommend that. All right, so the knife itself is part of the cut and dig tools. Obviously, over here, besides a knife, I'm going to recommend when you go to UV, you're going to carry two knives with you at all times. Your belt knife or work knife, and then your personal knife. You can carry a third knife strictly for self-defense, but that's a whole different thing. We'll talk about that later. Even your personal or your work knife, your belt knife, could be used in a self-defense case. Besides your basic two knives, you're going to want to have a couple other cutting tools. A tomahawk, right? A tomahawk or an axe. This is mine. I think this is an old Cold Steel Trailhawk or Frontier Hawk. Probably the Trailhawk, and I've shortened the handle and ground it down a little bit. This is I use this for a lot of my cutting tasks. right? Sometimes I only carry the tomahawk blade. I'll throw that with its old cover in my pack because I can always fashion a handle when I'm out in the woods. And then I can use this almost as an ulu style knife to cut and dig and carve. It provides me another cutting tool. But with the handle, a tomahawk provides me, if I don't have a full-size axe with me, the tomahawk will allow me to chop and process larger piece of wood that I wouldn't do necessarily with my knife. The other thing you absolutely have to have besides a tomahawk or an axe is a saw. This is just the, everybody loves this, the Bahco Laplander. We also carry with us the Sven saw, so we'll put those links down below. But these are the saws I recommend. Obviously, there are lots of other good saws, but this one's just great because it folds, locks into place, and I can put it in my pocket. And I can process this and maybe a Sven saw. So besides an axe and a tomahawk and a saw, cutting and digging, I've always got the Badger with me, or at least a personal trowel so I can dig some holes, because you're going to do more digging than cutting. On that subject, the reason, because we're in northern Michigan, and Michigan in general, we recommend the axe or the tomahawk to go with your saw, and we don't do a lot with machetes or big knives of that sort because that's more for tropical climates. You're not going to do much with a machete in northern Michigan. Right? The axe or the tomahawk is your friend. Now let's talk about the type of knife we do recommend. All right, so this one, this one's too big. I mean, I love this knife. This is a great knife. It's got all of the, it has a little ramp instead of jimping. This is the face. It's got that grind. It's got a nice finger guard with part of the choil here where I can actually protect my fingers or choke up on it, so I can get a little closer. This has got a little specialized divot for batoning. We'll talk about that some other time. You can see that the scales are bolted on, and they've got the pommel has got two little holes here, and it's also kind of specialized for hammering or pounding. I can actually chop with this, so this knife would be what some people call a one-tool solution, where this is my axe, my saw, my knife, do everything with it. Not a fan because I have to carry it all the time and it's just too big. Right? By the way, that's the Habalist Bush Tools SRT, Self-Reliance Tool. It's great, but it is, if I only had one tool, this would be it. But fortunately, I can plan ahead and not have just one knife. That one's a little bit big. Here's another Habalist Bush tool. This one is mine. It's been customized quite a bit. Still has the exposed pommel, the scales, and the little anvil portion here, some minor jimping. It's got a better edge than it came with. This is the Habalist Bush Tools. I think it's called the Bush Tool. So it's made by Habalist. Great knife. Aftermarket sheath. It comes with a JRE leather sheath. I had this made from Yellowhawk Custom Kydex. That's Doug Wilson. Yellowhawk Custom Kydex, because your knife is only about as good as your sheath. You got to be able to carry it safely and retain it. Doug does the best work. So those are kind of too big for a daily or a belt knife. So a better size would be something a little smaller, 3 to 4 inches. Everything you can't get done with a 3-inch knife, that's what your tomahawk and saw are for. Okay? There's a good features of a couple of these knives here. One good feature, they're about the right size. The other ones are too large. This type would be a little too small. Super convenient, like a Foltz Minimalist, or this is the SE Candiru. Right? Real nice knife, super small, little too small. Maybe it would be a good personal knife or sort of a neck knife backup. I can cut my food with it, I can do some wood processing, but there are limits just by its size. Well, a couple good points about this knife as a personal knife, the bright orange scale. It's very small. It stays out of sight around my neck or in my pocket, and I won't lose it because of the orange. It's just a little too small for my main or work knife, but it'd make a good secondary or personal knife. These two are from White River Knives here in Michigan. Okay? I like them a lot. They're relatively new, at least new to me. And this is a Yellowhawk Custom Kydex sheath by Doug Wilson. It's made to be carried at a cant. I carry cross draw, but you can switch this tech lock around and carry it however you want. This is their Backpacker Pro model. There you go. Let's see if you can see that White River right here in Michigan. Great thing about this knife, it's just the right size. It's got the orange handles, so it's got great visibility. It's got great jimping on the back, a really nice sharp tip for doing a variety of different things, and a real decent finger guard, that deep choil there, which is important to me, safety first. Great knife. One drawback I have on this knife is the spine is not sharp for scraping a ferro rod. And this neck between the handle and the finger choil area where the blade is, a little thin. I've never had any problem with it breaking, but you got to pace yourself and think ahead. So great knife, right size, got all the right tools, got a little lanyard hole on the exposed pommel so I could dig with it. This sheath is the one that comes with the knife. This is White River Bushcraft again. This is their fire starter knife. Orange scale, full tang, really big lanyard hole. It's got the jimping, it's got a nice tip, it's got a real deep grind, wide face, deep finger choil. It's even got this little ferro notch and a sharp 90-degree spine. So I like this one. I'm not a fan of the sheath. Eventually I have to send this, I'll get this off to Doug Wilson at Yellowhawk Custom Kydex, get a nice reliable Kydex sheath made for it. So the only reason I don't use this as my main belt knife, and I have taken it, is the handle is just a little too tight for my hand on that. It's a little too uncomfortable when I'm working for a long time on some woodcraft. Doing feather sticks, just using a knife for any extended period of time, it's not very comfortable. So besides important parts of knives, is the sheath for retention, is the comfort of the handle, because you're the one that's going to be using it, and that's kind of personal to everybody. Here's another example I wanted to make. Besides being too big or maybe too small for everything, is another knife for uncivilized vitality that you'd want to avoid would be any kind of specialized sort of self-defense knife. This is a knife by Shivworks, and this is a Pikal style knife, and it looks a little funny to people at first. It's got an egg handle with a nice palm swell so you can get a good grip on it. Nice deep finger choil. But where the spine would normally be is where the cutting edge is. It's got that wicked tip and the spine on the back. This type of knife only has one purpose, really. It's got that slight curve to the edge. It's meant to be held in a reverse grip so that the spine of the knife is forward and the sharp edge and the wicked tip are slightly curved back for a ripping and perforating and tearing, almost like simulating the claw of a large predator. That's great for self-defense. Not so helpful for bushcraft or day-to-day use. So you want to avoid those self-defense knives or daggers, switchblades, things like that. Love the folding knives, but the folding knife has the problem of being hinged. They're very convenient to carry, but for wilderness use, I would limit a folding knife to a small Spyderco or Benchmade, just in your pocket as a string and cheese knife, we say. This is about as high a recommendation I can give for a belt knife size. It's not too big, not too small, very Goldilocks. This is an LT Wright. This is his Camp Muck. Got full tang. It's got two big fat scales attached right to the blade, so it gives a real nice palm swell. The handle is super comfortable to use for extended periods of time. The blade shape itself is a Nessmuk style, but it's got a real nice shape. It's got that gentle sweep. It's good for skinning, food processing. I can work on wood with it. It's got a full grind where it runs right down to the edge on an angle right from the spine, so it's got a full grind on that. The face is part of the grind. There's no little bevel there. A secondary bevel on the end, but it's got a nice palm swell. I put a little inner tube around there just to give myself a little more indexing when it's wet with sweat or blood if I'm skinning with it. This is just the right size knife. It's not too big for some of the processing of wood. I baton with this. It's got a nice sharp spine. It doesn't have any jimping on the edge, but it's got that nice upswell, so I'd like it if the finger guard were a little deeper, but that's just me. So I really like this knife. This is my main belt knife. I've been using this for a long time. Paired up real nice, again with Doug Wilson, Yellowhawk Custom Kydex. I had him put a Kydex sheath on this LT Wright as opposed to the JRE dangler style pouch sheath that came with, because I carry this on a cross draw position, and the knife will sit with that positive retention. I know that knife's not going anywhere. I'm not going to lose that knife. Plus, Doug hooked this up so I can put a ferro rod on there, so I've always got a way to start fire right with my knife. Kind of just super convenient. I can change the tech lock around and carry this in a dangler position, standard belt knife, lower than my belt. Lots of ways to carry it, or just throw it in my pack. Testing my own theory, I've lately even moved to a slightly smaller knife because I'll carry a small knife daily, and then when I go to the woods, I'll break out my LT Wright belt knife. But I'm trying to get to the point where I'm using the same tool all the time. So one of the knives I've worked with most recently is another LT Wright. This is the Great Plainsman. It's a little on the small side with the blade, but I've yet to run into a task that I can't get done with this. This one has the benefit of being carried every day, full tang, extra long handle with the lanyard hole so it fits in my hand, and I gotta say LT Wright makes some of the most comfortable handles out there. Maybe Bark River, which is another good knife company from Michigan. They make great handles as well. But I really like this. The Great Plainsman's got this little sort of harpoon-shaped spine that I use as a thumb ramp in lieu of jimping. It's even good in a reverse grip for maybe even a self-defense application. But I carry this knife, again, Doug Wilson, with a dummy cord. I just tuck this into my waistband or in my pocket, or I just throw it in my pack. When I'm out in the bush, sometimes I'll drop this into its leather, JRE leather pouch dangler sheath to carry it around, and that's just as convenient. Sometimes throw a tech lock on and carry it cross draw. So between this, my tomahawk, and a saw that helps me get most of my things done, and then for a personal knife, I choose to carry also daily is a simple multi-tool that combines the best of having a personal cheese and string knife, a folding knife that I can one hand deploy. It's not going to stand up to the use that one of these belt knives will, batoning or digging or prying. I know you're not supposed to, but abusing knives in the real world. I have the benefit of all the other tools on this. This is our Leatherman, or my Leatherman Signal, which of course, if you watched any of our other videos about this, I very highly recommend this. It's not for everybody. This is just my personal recommendation. Uncivilized uses it because it has all the tools we would use or need. Even a secondary smaller saw for cutting notches and doing some smaller woodworking. A secondary knife, it's a personal, just a folding knife that I keep on me. And then I've been downsizing and I've been using this as my belt knife or work knife. And then I pair that up with my tomahawk and a saw, and those are all my cutting and digging tools. So my recommendation for a knife is one that's not too big, not too small. It's got a really good carry system that you're going to carry it, because the best knife is the one you have with you. It has that full tang feature, a sharp spine, a good tip, research your grinds, see what you're going to use it for mostly, and then a very comfortable handle. So those are my recommendations. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then share this with any of your friends that are interested in bushcraft.